Welcome back to episode 139 of the Rudis Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Dernlin, and today I'm joined on the show by new head wrestling coach at Campbell University, Scotty Sentis. Scotty, what's going on, my man?
A lot. It's a whirlwind, all angles. I'm sure you know about that.
Yeah. So before we jump into everything, I know, number one, congratulations on the new job. I know, how it is to jump into a position like this. You don't have any time to really, feel your way around. You just got to jump in and attack things as they're coming your way. So how are things been going? Give us a little insight into the last 2 weeks. I know take us inside of the whirlwind in the last 2 weeks before we jump into everything else.
Well, first of all, you find out just how big the wrestling community is. So just a lot of blasts, a lot of conversations with people. My first steps have just been retaining my guys here, retaining the recruits. So I had to call each guy on the team, see where their heads were at, and check in with them. And then I'm in the hiring process and scheduling. So I'm managing all three of those things at once. So it's been busy. It's been pretty much from 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. Just until I get things in order.
So before we dig into and unpack all those things that you just talked about, I think one of the biggest things right now on the immediate future is getting these guys to the finish line of the school year, right? So how does that look like? We're in the aftermath of the NCAA tournament. I'm sure the guys have settled in with their emotions. They're still trying to resolve their emotions about everything that we saw with the cancellation of the NCAA tournament. But what's actually going on as far as how are you navigating the online classrooms and checking in and making sure guys are getting all their coursework done and meeting with their tutors and all those fun things?
Yeah, it's definitely a unique situation, right? Because I can't call a guy in my office or check in with them. So just meeting with the academic advisor, hey, we know which guys we need to stay on, and then just calling each of those guys individually. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough when a kid's away from home, because when they get to that online class, they, tend to wait till last second, or they don't feel it piling up like they do when they're here in the classroom. So it's been unique. It's been a unique challenge, but so far things seem to be going all right.
Yeah, it seemed like I think, when we're talking, I've got three girls, and now they're in homeschool. They're doing all this online stuff, so it's a bit unfamiliar with them. But for the majority of college students anymore, online activity is kind of the normal routine. You get your class notes posted online, once the session is done. So how much of an adjustment outside of the physical contact has it been with the guys?
It's actually probably a good thing, just because there's a lot of other little things I have to take care of. So not running a practice and, everything's shut down here. It makes it a little bit easier for me to put some of my time in other areas. But yeah, it's really different. And there's a lot of question marks going forward in terms of training, and are we going to be able to do summer training with this coronavirus? And so it's had a lot of effects, but it's one of those things I've never had to navigate before, so I can't tell you how different it is. I have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah, I guess I guess for most people they can say the same thing. This is a new unknown that, I think for coaches that have been in the field for a long time, they're saying, well, at this point I've seen everything. But once I got into coaching for a while, that never left my mouth, because as soon as I said I've seen everything, something new pops up and it's a new experience. And that's, I guess, one of the fun. I guess this isn't fun, I guess, but we're always have to adapt, and we always have to embrace change, because change is ever moving and ever, it's the most common thing in coaching is the unexpected. So this first big unexpected thing is one of the biggest things you have to navigate through. But how is the support system around the athletic department? What pieces do you guys have in place that you're being able to utilize and for the student athletes there on campus right now?
Well, it starts from the top. I didn't realize this as an assistant, just how supportive our athletic director was. But actually getting to sit down with him, he's the kind of guy is what do you need? What can I do to help? Message me. He'll call and check up on me. And I didn't realize that was happening from the higher ups. And so he's been there. Hey, what do you need? Are you checking with your guys? Is there anything they need, anything we need to do for them? So it starts there. Then you have the academic advisors, you have the alumni. There's a ton of support for Campbell. I mean, everybody from the top down is on board. So, and that there's a lot of kudos go to Colat for that. Obviously, he's built something special here. So it's been easy. It's been easy for me to take over a healthy program.
So now, well, you're an integral part of building that with Carrie and the rest of the staff and everything that you guys have had to navigate through for the last 6 years. But for me, I'm very familiar with who you are and what you've done and where you've been in the sport. But I wanted to take a step back before we actually jump into the job here and how you're going to attack this moving ahead. I wanted to give some people some background that maybe not as familiar with you, but you're from Florida. We're a 4-time state champion in Florida. Moved up to Michigan for your college career at Central Michigan, where you were a 2-time All-American for one of the best coaches, in my mind, one of the best coaches in the country, Tom Borelli. Then you made your first coaching stop out on the West Coast at Cal Poly, spent several years out there, and then you've spent a handful of years here at Campbell as the assistant, the former associate head coach, and now the head coach. So as we look into that, I know every coach, when they step into your shoes for the first time, they reference people from their past and how they've helped them shape their coaching philosophy, their athletic philosophy. So, look back on some of the people that have really impacted and shaped your coaching philosophy, and how instrumental has that been for you to be in this position now, and how much are you going to draw on some of the things that you've learned from those important influencers in your past?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you learn a lot from everybody you come in contact with. From Borelli, he's very regimented. He's a wise guy. He's very particular in his training. He's very planned. He's very organized. That's the kind of guy you get from Tom. Still a guy I call on to today. If I ever run into an issue or something I haven't seen before, he's been around a long time. Cal Poly, Buckley was really good with alumni, really good with relationships, really good with people. So I learned a lot there. He also gave me a lot of responsibility when I went out there because he knew I wanted to be a head coach. So he put a lot on my plate, which, helped me learn all the ins and outs of the program. And then somebody like Colat, who is probably one of the most creative people I've ever been around, and watching how he runs a room, how, his training philosophies, he's, when people think of Colat, I think from the outside looking in, they think he's this old school, hard nosed, but that's not the case at all. He's really new school. I mean, we hit the pools, we hit the, different cross training, and he's just really smart. And so I've learned a lot of that from him, and obviously a lot from the motivational side. I think that's probably one of the things he was best at, is just motivating guys. So I picked a little bit from each of them. All three very, very different people. If you put all three of them in the room, you'd think they were all opposites. So luckily I've been blessed with just surrounding myself with different types of people, but people that are, I could call on at any point in time and get answers if I need them.
So most head coaches, typically they're coming from a different institution. And I know the biggest learning curve jumping into a new institution is one, understanding what the university is truly about. Even though you go through it in the interview process, you've got to, there's a learning curve to understand the uniqueness of the institution, the athletic departments, and developing relationships within there. But how much of a benefit has it been to have the familiarity, have the connections, have the relationships developed on some level on the campus side of things, with admissions, from the athletic side of things, as far as working with your athletic support, working with your athletic training staff, working with all your different support systems, strength and conditioning, all those different parts. Like, how much of a benefit, especially in a time like this, with everything that's going on nationally, how comforting it is that you've been there, you have these relationships already established.
Oh yeah, it's been huge. It's made my life easy. I couldn't imagine having to, take over another program and worry about moving and getting my family there, and also trying to figure out who's who and what I need to do to get things done. So here I know what needs to be done. I know who I need to contact to get those things done. I know how fast it's going to take them to get those things done. So it's been easy. I already kind of know how the program's ran and what it needs and how it needs to get to that next step. And so it's been a pretty simple transition. I already know the guys, and it would be tough to imagine having to take over a program and move. I wouldn't envy that person.
And also, like, so you have familiarity, but the other thing that I think is like critical is like you've been through real wars and real battles in the last 5, 6 years at Campbell. Like everything that you guys have had to navigate through has probably been one of, from the outside looking in, one of the biggest rebuilding jobs that I've ever seen. One, because when you guys took over the program, you were on probation, you were in APR trouble, you couldn't compete in the postseason, and so you literally, in essence, started the program from scratch. And so, take us through kind of some of the things that you've had to navigate through from the start of the program, establishing culture, establishing philosophy, getting the level of buy-in, and just run through the last 5, 6 years of all the different parts that you've had to really navigate through, and where you position the program, and how much of a benefit is going through those battles and bleeding that blood to get the program up to where it is, as where you position the program now as a top 20 program.
Yeah, so early on, it was just about numbers, right? Because we couldn't convince the best kids in the country to come here and wrestle at Campbell because we hadn't shown that you could win a national title here. So early on, it was just about numbers. And then through time, just from training hard, some of those numbers would dwindle down each year, but you'd always start with a big number, right? 55 on roster. Then over time, as some of the guys started having success, luckily, Cole had actually had Nathan Kreiser transfer with him from UNC, so we already had a hammer. And as he started having more success, it made recruiting a little bit easier. So then you go into the transition of we have higher level recruits coming in. You have guys that were already here and went from possibly being the starter or number 2 on the ladder to being number 3 or 4 on the ladder. So then there was that changing of the guard where you have higher level recruits coming in, already beating the guys you have, making these guys tougher, or those guys dropping out. And then as levels started going up, you just get tougher and tougher kids. The level comes up, the low guys would either move on or stick around. And you just get higher level, and everything just started going up, and performance started happening. And when you start winning, people start wanting to get involved. So then the alumni start getting involved again. The donors start coming in. We were able to start, getting this facility that we needed, getting the staff we needed in place. I think when Colot took over, it was him and one part-time assistant. At this point now, it's, you have the head coach, 2 assistants, a volunteer assistant, you have a director of ops. We have a team, so it's just, as you're having more success, more support comes, and it just keeps getting a little bit easier to keep that ball rolling and keep climbing.
And that's a critical thing. I mean, you can have the right vision, the right culture, the right philosophy, but if you don't have the support, I mean, that's a battle that's hard to win. But it seems like everything that you guys have been able to establish, not only on your end, but it seems like the administration is an active participant in the program. They're actively involved. They're actively trying to elevate the program. And that's one of the most critical pieces. I think when people inventory a program and they say, well, this program should be this, or program should be that. When you get behind the curtain, the reality of that is the landscape of that a lot of times is much different. But I think from what you're saying and what you've established and what the university and the athletic department, you have everything you need to compete. And not only that, you've established, I think, a level of belief, not only within your program, the guys within the program, how a level of belief that they can compete against anybody in the country. And you proved this year by beating Iowa State, by running the conference schedule, winning the conference dual meet and tournament titles. So there's a level of belief established within the program, but I think that's permeated throughout the athletic department when they look at Campbell Wrestling and what you guys have done. How critical is that administrative support, that you've been able to observe in the relationships that you've established there?
Oh, it's huge. Obviously, you can't do it unless you have the resources. For us, if you want to be a nationally competitive team, you got to have the budget to travel. You got to have the coaches on staff. You got to be able to recruit. You got to be able to fly in and see a kid and fly the best kids in the country in, and it's them. They're the ones that give us that opportunity. So without them, money doesn't make the world go around. We tell our guys all the time, you could be one of the best wrestlers in the country if you have one mat on a concrete slab. But if you walk into our complex, you can see that this is a highly supported program, and it's money helps. Money helps for sure, and support helps, and the administration here wants to win, and they'll do what it takes.
Yeah, speak to the facilities, because that's the tangible commitment. A lot of programs can say, "Oh yeah, we're supported by the university," but then when you look what the program actually has, like, well, that just seems like it's more lip service than actual reality. But I've been down there, I've seen the room, and when I was coaching, especially when I was back in Penn State, and it's been about 10 years ago that they opened their new room, and at the time it was hands down the best room in the country. And people were like, "Oh man, this is going to help the program so much." I'm like, "No." I was like, "It's still four walls and a wrestling mat. Okay, we're still doing the same work. It doesn't matter if it's one mat or six mats." But what I would always say to people, I was like, symbolically, what this room means should speak volumes to the guys in the team, the recruits, the parents that we bring in. So it's more than words. It's a symbolic testament to what the administration really is investing in your program. So I think when you step up and you see a program and you see a facility like you guys have, I mean, you have to have one of the top 15 facilities in the country. I mean, it's got everything you could possibly need. And speak to that symbolic commitment that you can communicate when you're talking to your kids, when you're talking to your recruits and your parents. Like, yes, this isn't just lip service. Look what we have.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Campbell's not going to sell the nightlife. We're not going to sell painting your face and passing out the football game. So there's two things we sell: school and wrestling. And so the wrestling side's really got to be here, and the academic side's really got to be here. So when we bring a guy through and they see the facilities and they see what it used to be this parking lot behind Moe's. And just in 7 years, they built this entire arena. We went from having two mats to 3.5 full-size mats. A conference room, a hangout area with a $2,500 massage chair in it, and TVs, which there's food and stuff in the fridge. We have brand new locker rooms with glow-in-the-dark lockers. They glow orange, and you can plug your phones into them and charge them and play music out of them. A hot tub and a cold tub for just wrestling. An exercise room for just wrestling. So you just see that growth and that fast growth, right? We went from having a tiny room or being in a parking lot to, having one of the most convenient, accessible wrestling rooms in the country. So it's been huge. I mean, it's one thing to talk about it with a kid, talk about what you can do here and say we're about, academics and wrestling, but it's another thing for them to come in here and say, yeah, they mean that when he says it. So it's definitely helped on all ends.
So on the recruiting front, because that's one of the most critical pieces. It is the most incredible critical pieces. Like, you can be the best coach in the world, but if you don't have talent, it doesn't matter how good of a coach you are. And I would always laugh and tell people, like, great athletes make good coaches. Obviously, you've got to have the right philosophy in place, but the talent's got to be there. So in your time, when you're looking at a recruit, and I think we all look at different things. Obviously, talent is a prerequisite. They've got to have the talent that you're looking for. So that's the obvious thing that we don't need to talk about that, because there's got to be a level of talent to compete at this level. But beyond that, what have you guys found out about the athletes and the parents and the families you've recruited over the last 5 years that really is a fit? What's going to be the fit for a Campbell athlete?
Yeah, so for us, we like grinders. I've always liked grinders, and by grinders, I'm not talking about your style of wrestling. I'm talking about a kid that is unfazed, right? A kid that can lose early on in a tournament and battle back and take third. I'm also looking for a kid that's independent, that's going to work on their own. We tell our guys here, if you do just what we tell you to do, you're not going to be a national champ. You're not going to get in the stand. So I'm looking for a guy that's independent. And what I mean by independent is he's answering his own questions. He's the one that's reaching out. You know, he's on top of things. Because the guy that's, if his parents are always looking after him and making the calls for him, when he gets away from mom and dad, he's not going to do well here, right? He's not going to do the extra work. He's not going to have somebody pushing him. And with us, we have such a big roster. We can't, put our foot in guys' butts, every single guy's butts, right? You have to take ownership, and we give you that extra 20% push in the end to get you on the stand. But it's got to come from you. And so for us, we started recruiting kids from all around the country, not just in North Carolina, as far as Alaska. We had a guy from Finland, a guy from Mongolia, California, Texas, kids from all over the country. And it came down to, who's gonna be able to push themselves in the room, right? So for us, it's independence, and it's grinding. It's always getting the next best thing and the next point, and so that's what we look for.
Yeah. So as you're recruiting, and how has it served you to be? You've literally been in every part of the country: wrestled in Florida, college career in Michigan, coaching career started in California. So how has that help serve in developing national relationships? Because that's what recruiting is really about, is the relationships you establish with state level coaches, with club coaches, with national team coaches at different states. How have those different experiences and all the geographic areas that you've lived in over the last 10, 15 years, how's that served to really cultivate and grow your recruiting pool of relationships that you can tap into?
Oh, it's been huge. No matter where you're from in the country, there's somebody I can call about you. And I do a lot of homework. So, I'm going to call, coaches in the area. I'm going to call people I know in that area. I'm going to see how you carry yourself out offside the mat, inside the mat. But then I also use my guys on my team, right? So people don't understand this. The guys on my team are my best recruiters. And we have such a good culture. These are the kinds of kids, they want to be good. They'll say, hey, this kid might be the same weight as me, but we need to recruit him because he's good. And so I'll use my guys because, they know who the best kids are in their state, whether it's Montana, Florida, California, Pennsylvania. They'll say, this is a guy you need to go after. And this is a guy that's not a lot of people are talking to. And so I use the guys on my team and, to branch out. And then I also use the coaches, and it just makes it easier and easier, and just having a good relationship, treating people right, being honest with them, it makes recruiting easier and easier as you go along and you build that reputation with people.
Now, let's talk about the specific geographic location of Campbell. You're in North Carolina, and traditionally, we've looked at the South, and there hasn't been a lot of success. But over the course of the last 5 years, 5, 6, 7 years, we've seen the Southern Conference elevate. We've seen Campbell rise to the top of the Southern Conference, but also just down the road in your surrounding region, we've seen the elevation of the ACC conference. And some people might say, in your position, like, oh man, I've got all this competition around me, it's making my job more difficult. I tend to look at the ACC and the South and the movement that's going on there as a positive thing for Campbell, because you can look to the left, to the right, the north and south in the state and say, hey, there's programs having success all over the state. And that's a good thing. Is that the view you take of North Carolina, of the wrestling that's going on down south?
Yeah, absolutely. These other programs are doing a good job. App State included. I think they do a good job with the North Carolina kids. I guess you'll see that they have the right people in place to get the right kids. I don't know what their rosters look like. Ours has kids from all over the country, not just North Carolina. But for us, we can talk about, hey, we can go and hit these schools. Every open tournament that's local, you're going to be seeing all these best kids in the country. And that's big for RPI. That's big for in your redshirt year, getting the competition that you need. And it makes things a little bit easier in that sense. But yeah, it's it doesn't really affect us that much in regards to being local, but I guess I could just sell the competition side of things. But we haven't really talked much about what these other programs are doing, because like I said, we're not recruiting just North Carolina kids. We're recruiting kids from all over the country. So
now let's jump into the team itself. And I know when you guys first jumped in, you were the ones driving culture. You were driving expectations. You were setting standards. But as you've progressed up the national ranks over the last 5 years and position yourself this year as a top 20 program, how critical was it to transition from your driving culture to getting that built-in internal leadership and accountability from the guys in your team? And how's that going to serve you now that that's established? Because this is something that Carrie and I had the opportunity to talk about. It's like getting that not just the buy-in, because that's the first step, but getting that belief and the level of accountability that you have to have the guys in your team embrace to help establish that internal leadership, that internal level of accountability. How critical is that to the growth of the program, and how much are you going to rely on that to drive and push the program forward?
Huge. We have one word, it's ownership. These guys have ownership of the program. They feel like it's theirs. The team wins are theirs. It's not the head coach's team win. It's the guys' team win. It's Campbell Wrestling's team win. And that goes from not just the starters. It goes to the guys in the practice room. It goes to the administration. It goes to the staff. It goes everywhere. And so ownership's the big word that we use. These guys help in all aspects of wrestling, the wrestling program. And they see what we do. And that goes from fundraising. Our guys will fundraise. Our guys will get on the phones. They'll make the calls. They'll get donations coming in. They understand that it takes money and it takes a budget to travel all over the country and wrestle the best teams, to have the facility we have, to have the training resources we have. So they're in on fundraising. They understand recruiting. We'll tell them, they know what weights we need. They know who the best kids are. So they'll come to us and tell us which kids to recruit. At the same time, when I bring a recruit in and they take them, outside of the wrestling room, they're interviewing that kid. They're making sure that kid fits with us. And they're, without even us asking, they're reporting back to us and they say, hey, that's a kid we need to get. That's a kid that can help this team. Or that's a kid, even though he might be good on paper, coach, he's not going to fit in here. He doesn't live the right lifestyle. And so that makes our job easier, having that trust in them that they're not just going to tell us those things because they're afraid of a kid. They're going to tell us those things because they want to win. It's important to them to win. And so that ownership of the program, them feeling like it belongs to them, because it does at the end of the day, has made my job easier. Because it's just like having other guys working for me. They want to win, and they're going to be honest and help continue pushing this train forward.
And I think that's a critical thing, that establishing faith and trust, a mutual faith and trust that goes back and forth between the athlete and the coach, and having the luxury of knowing, like, yeah, all these guys are bought in, they believe. And so when I turn them over, I recruited this guy. I know what he's doing every day. And so when he tells me, hey, coach, this kid ain't a good fit, like, it's nice when you've established that the cultural expectation where you can rely on the guys in your team, and that they're supporting and you're driving. And when they're away from you, when they're, at an apartment or in the dorms hanging out with other recruits, everything they're saying is reinforcing the same things that you're telling the recruit during the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So the one thing we tell recruits, and our guys have heard this a million times, is I look at the two people you surround yourself with, and you're probably the average of those two people. And at Campbell's campus, there's a good average. These are guys that I'd leave my son around. These are guys that when recruits come, if they're guys that want to win and they care about school, they're going to fit in. They're going to love it here. It's like a training camp. And so over time, it just gets easier and easier because, they're helping me. They know what we're looking for, and they're, I can rely on them. I don't have to overthink anything.
So now let's look at, the next, probably one of the next pieces you got to put into place is establishing your staff. Now, from my understanding, did everybody follow Carrie up to Navy?
Yes. So Blaze and Mike, they both followed him. Blaze's wife, Kate, she's our director of ops. She's going to stay here and finish out her contract and help me out until I think June or July is when her contract ends, and then she's going to carry on out to Navy. So it's a brand new staff. Yep. So been doing a lot of phone calls.
And then this is critical. These are not only is the recruiting, but the staff you assemble. I mean, that's the biggest piece. So what are you looking for? You've got three positions to fill. I'm sure you've had discussions. You've relied on people, pick their brain, but now as you move forward, what are you looking for in your head assistant, your second assistant, your volunteer, and then potentially the director of ops is a critical role anymore as far as administering the program, making sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, all those things. So all these are critical hires. So break down each one of those roles from the head assistant, second assistant, volunteer coach, and the director of ops. Like what are you looking for? What complementary parts are you looking for to complement you? What maybe new elements are you looking to add to the staff? So, go from there. What are your thoughts there?
So it's important to understand my own strengths and weaknesses, right? So where I'm really good is I'm really good with relationships. So I've had a lot of success, and I'm really comfortable with recruiting, with finding the right guys, with making them, developing that trust, getting guys to come here. They love it here. So I know I can handle recruiting pretty well. One thing that I also like to do is fundraising, right? I'm pretty tight with the alumni. So I need to find somebody that would hit one of my weaknesses. So one thing that I really need in a head assistant or an associate head coach is somebody that can help me run the room, right? So I can run the room, but watching how Carrie does it, there's definitely levels to it, right? So for me, it's finding a room guy, someone that understands the training, the highs and the lows, how to peak a guy. So somebody with some more experience. For the second assistant, I want another guy that can recruit, a little guy who could roll with my 41, 49s, help get Josh Heil on the stand, but also help me with that safety net of recruiting. Because obviously with head coach, there's going to be things that's going to drive me away at times from being as effective at recruiting as maybe I was as an assistant. For the director of ops, what I'm going to try to do is keep Noah Gonzer around. Gonzer wants to be a head coach one day. And so I feel like if I can keep him around, and I know he's going to have options because he's a great pickup for anyone, I'd be able to give him, people think coaching is just the guy yelling, but there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I think at director of ops, Gonzer would be able to pick up that's going to help him be a head coach one day. And so my goal is to try to keep him volunteer assistant. I'm not sure if I'm going to have that this year or not. I might have to fundraise more to get one. But if I'm able to have one, or if, Andrew Morgan doesn't get his year, I'd like to try to find a way to keep him, but that's something I'd have to work out. Just to have a guy here that understands the program, can work with the big guys. But the goal is to try to get Andrew Morgan's year back. So that's my plan right now. I have a big guy picked out already, 10 plus years of experience, 3-time All-American national finalist, U.S. Senior Nationals champ. But I can't announce his name yet. So I have one picked out. I just have a few more to slot in.
I think I won't give it away, but I think based on that information, I've got 2 or 3 guys in mind that fit. That's a pretty small selection based upon that, but that's exciting. That's awesome. So moving ahead, and then this is kind of where I want to wrap up. I don't want to take a ton of your time, and I appreciate you jumping on. Like moving ahead, and I've had a couple conversations, and I shot these people down right away when they're like, "Hey, do you think Sentis can maintain?" I'm like, "No, maintaining the status quo is not what Scotty's thinking about." I know this from talking to Carrie enough, and this was just what you guys established the previous 3 years and where you were positioned there. This was just the start, right? And I shot these people down right away. I'm like, "No, it's not about maintaining the status quo." I know the vision and the goals that the staff had before Carrie left. It ain't going to change now. You ain't going to go backwards or say, "Oh, I hope we can keep our head above water." What's your philosophy? Where are you moving ahead? Because I know those were talks that you and Carrie had about where you were and where you're going. So what's the next steps for the program?
not a guy that wants to take over a good program. I'm a guy that wants to take over a good program and make it great. So the goal has always been top 10. You know, we want to be top 15, top 20 every year, and then start breaking into that top 10 and pushing forward. And so that's where our heads are at. That's where the guys on our team's heads are at. There's nobody here that wants to take a step backwards. You get a little bit of taste of that nectar of winning, of having that national attention. You don't want to let it go. And these guys here understand that. And I think recruits, when they meet us and they meet our guys and they see what we're about here, they're going to understand it too. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not putting the foot on the brake. It's putting it on the gas a little bit more and pushing forward.
I love it. I love it. Well, hey, Scotty, thanks again for taking time out of your day. I know you're really slammed, but really excited for you. Appreciate the opportunity to have you on the show today. Good luck building out your staff. It's going to be fun over the next couple of weeks to see who actually jumps on board and how you build this out and how you position it ahead. But you have a lot of fans here at Rudis. We've established some things. We're going to, that's the one thing that I told Carrie. I'm like, hey, just because you're gone, make sure you tell Scotty, like, we're here for him, whatever he needs. So we've loved what we've been able to do with you. We want to support, the mission and the goals of Campbell Wrestling. And congratulations on the head job and good luck moving ahead.
All right. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for your time.